Hello and welcome to Kelly's Wordy Reactions. So, today we are going to pick back up on page 8 of this document that talks about Trump's Project 2025 shapes Republicans' funding bills. Okay, so if you have not seen the previous 7 pages, if you have not seen the previous 7 pages, I did record those in earlier videos. Just look for this same title. Um, and I believe there are 2 to 3 that are leading up to this one. But we're going to get back into this one starting with page 8. All right. So let me go ahead and go back over the top here again, because when I get to page 8 and any additional pages, this top portion is not there. So just go ahead and introduce the document here. So Trump's Project 2025 shapes Republicans' funding bills. So in this document, Trump's Project 2025 is going to be what I'll read first, and then how the Republican 2025 funding bill basically is assisting him with his policies, agenda, whatever you want to call it. So, and I got this document from the house.gov, and basically I guess I can go ahead and start putting the link. So I'll put the link in the description so you can go over and read this yourself if you would like to. But this is coming from democrats-appropriations.house.gov. Okay, so what they have is that this is not just some list of far-right ideas and extreme policies. Trump's Project 2025 is already here, shaping legislation being considered by this Congress. This hurts the middle class and weakens the economy. Trump's Project 2025 proposes cutting taxes for the wealthy and eliminating programs targeting tax cheats. It would hurt the middle class, harm hardworking people, and weaken the economy. All right, so let's go ahead and skip on down to page 8 where I left off. That's 9, isn't it? Okay, page 8. Okay, so erodes checks and balances. Trump's Project 2025 removes checks and balances to give the president more control over the government than at any time in American history. It advocates eliminating critical staff, giving the president the power to fire career civil servants, ending the independence of the FBI and DOJ, and making our elections less secure. And it calls for weakening our national security by isolating the United States from the rest of the world. And I think you and me, we can already see a lot of these things happening. All right, so this next section on page 8 is addressing commerce, justice, science, and related agencies. So Trump's Project 2025 undermine public sector unions, page 82. And we're thinking that this is coming from the actual Project 2025, the 900 and some odd page document. So undermine public sector unions. And then Republican 2025 funding bills prohibits funds from being used for the operations or expenses of any federal employee union. All right, on the Trump side, shrink FBI headquarters, page 551. On the Republican funding bill side, cuts the FBI salaries and expenses account by $367.7 million below 2024, which would result in thousands fewer FBI employees across both headquarters and the FBI field offices. Prohibits funds for the Department of Justice to implement or administer the relocation of FBI's crumbling headquarters, building on Pennsylvania Avenue. Oh, okay. I got it. Prohibits funds for the Department of Justice to implement or administer the relocation of FBI's crumbling headquarters building on Pennsylvania Avenue. Okay, so that gets cut. And then on the next one, on Trump's side, prohibit the FBI from combating the spread of misinformation and disinformation. Page 550. So they want to prohibit the FBI from being able to combat misinformation and disinformation. And then on the funding bill side, prohibits the FBI's Foreign Influence Task Force from monitoring or labeling constitutionally protected speech by anyone in the U.S. as mis, dis, or malinformation. So they don't want the FBI to be able to label constitutionally protected speech. Okay. Prohibits the classification of any communications by any person in the U.S. as mis, dis, or mal information, or to partner with any entity to censor lawful and constitutionally protected speech of United States persons. All right, then on the Trump side, the next one, limit the Department of Justice's ability to protect American civil rights and promote equity. Page 561. Don't want that either. And then on the funding bill side, so the funding bill is going to cut the Department of Justice's Civil Rights Division by $35 million, which will greatly harm civil rights enforcement. The next one, on the Trump side, limit the Department of Justice's independence and ensure the DOJ or the Department of Justice and the FBI's loyalty to the president. Chapter 17. On the funding bill side, it's going to cut funding for the DOJ's Office of Legal Counsel by $3.3 million, 29%. Among the important roles of DOJ's Office of Legal Counsel is to review all executive orders and substantive proclamations for legality if the president proposes them, as well as to review and comment on the constitutionality of pending legislation. So if they're going to cut the funding for this DOJ Office of Legal Counsel by $3.3 million, which is 29%, they're telling us that the important roles of this office is to review all executive orders and substantive proclamations for legality if the president proposes them, as well as to review and comment if the constitutionality of or on the constitutionality of pending legislation. So cut the funding, cut the people that will be able to do that job, in other words. Page 9, financial services and general government. On the Trump side, stop the U.S. Small Business Administration from expanding citizens' opportunities to register to vote. Page 749. On the funding bill side, prohibits the implementation of the executive order on promoting access to voting with certain exceptions, making it more difficult for people to vote. We're already seeing some of those acts and things like that be put forth. All right. On the Trump side, prohibit the FBI from engaging in general in activities related to combating the spread of so-called misinformation and disinformation by Americans who are not tied to any plausible criminal activity, page 550. And then on the funding bill side, prohibits the government from contracting with, granting awards to, or otherwise obligating or expending funds to entities under the stated function of fact checking. No fact checkers. Get those fact checkers out of the way, apparently. I'm sorry, comma, or otherwise exposing or correcting misinformation, disinformation, or malinformation. So they definitely do not want those folks. So they're cutting that fund. They're cutting those funds to those entities. All right. Under state, foreign operations, or related programs, under the Trump side, restrict funds to the World Health Organization or other health-focused international organizations, page 192. On the funding bill side, prohibits funding for the World Health Organization and all international treaties. Prohibits funding for World Health Organization and all international treaties, agreements, or any international alliance with legal force until ratified by the Senate. On the Trump side, make deep cuts in the international affairs budget, page 254. On the funding bill side, slashes funds for development aid and State Department and USAID operations by $7 billion, 12%. On the Trump side, withdrawal from any international organizations, in quotes, the next administration should direct the Secretary of State to initiate a comprehensive cost-benefit analysis of U.S. participation in all international organizations. Well, we see why they are pulling out of the international organizations here. That's page 191. And on the funding bill side, eliminates funding for the United Nations regular budget and the international organization and programs like UNICEF, UNDP. On the Trump side, cut aid to states such as Iraq, Lebanon, and the Palestinian territories, page 274. On the funding bill side, defunds the Office of Palestinian Affairs, takes a punitive approach to any assistance or takes a punitive approach to any assistance for West Bank and Gaza and prohibits assistance to Iraq. All right. Homeland Security. On the Trump side, halt funds given to non-governmental organizations, NGOs, to process and transport migrants into and throughout the United States, page 149. On the funding bill side, eliminates the Shelter and Services Program and includes language to prohibit the use of funds. Oh, okay. Let me start that over. So on the funding bill side, this eliminates the Shelter and Services Program and includes language to prohibit the use of funds to transport non-citizens into the interior of the U.S., with a limited exception for enforcement of immigration laws, adding to logistical challenges of mitigating overcrowded facilities along the border. Next one, on the Trump side, immediately end CISA's counter disinformation efforts, page 155. On the funding bill side, this limits the department's ability to counter disinformation campaigns, including from malign. Including from malign foreign actors who seek to undermine our democratic elections, and limits DHS's ability to counter dis, or malinformation efforts by domestic extremists and other adversaries who seek to cause harm to our critical infrastructure and our communities. Next one, on the Trump side, eliminate the office of the Immigration Detention Ombudsman, page 165. This, on the funding bill side, this eliminates funding for OIDO, a key office for oversight of immigration facilities. Okay, this is going into page 10 now. Military, a new heading, Military Construction, Veterans Affairs, and Related Agencies. Okay. Transfer all career senior executives out of appointed and confirmed positions on the first day, and ensure political control of the Veterans Administration. Wow, page 651. On the funding bill side, prohibits VA from using critical incentive skill payments to recruit or retain experts. My goodness. Okay. Under Agriculture, Rural Development, Food and Drug Administration, and related agencies, on the Trump side, make deep cuts in the International Development Association, IDA, budget, the government's primary humanitarian aid funding source, page 268. On the funding bill side, this cuts $688 million from Food for Peace, which would be the lowest level since 2002. This cut would harm American farmers, increase hunger around the world, and threaten our national security. All right, another large heading here. Ends all efforts to confront the climate crisis. Trump's Project 2025 aims to end all efforts to address damage to our climate, curb pollution, and transition to clean energy. On the Trump side, so this is going into the Department of Interior, Environment, and related agencies. So on the Trump side, eliminate the Office of Environmental Justice and External Civil Rights, page 421. On the bill side, this defunds environmental justice activities at the EPA. On the Trump side, or I'm just going to say next one and then what this does, and then you'll know that this is the next bullet point and what it does. All right, next one. Reverse the Biden administration's efforts to confront the climate crisis, page 20. This prohibits funds for 31 EPA regulations. Next one. Reinstate the Trump-era energy dominance agenda. Rescind Secretarial Order 3398 and reinstate the Trump DOI secretarial orders regarding coal. We've also heard about coal lately. This abandons withdrawal of lands from leasing in protected areas. This abandons withdrawal of lands from leasing in protected areas, does not ensure fair return from leasing on public lands for American taxpayers, and prohibits updating leasing regulations. Oh, man. Oh, okay. I missed one here with the page turn. Okay, I'm going to do this one over. So I'm going to say next one. Reinstate the Trump-era energy dominance agenda. Rescind Secretarial Order SO 3398 and reinstate the Trump DOI secretarial orders regarding coal, offshore energy, onshore oil and gas leasing, National Petroleum Reserve, Alaska, page 521. And then again, this abandons withdrawal of lands from leasing in protected areas, does not ensure fair return from leasing on public lands for American taxpayers, and prohibits updating leasing regulations. All right, next one. Policy reversal on the Endangered Species Act rules. Delist iconic apex predators. Okay, page 534. I'm gonna have to read about that when I get done. Okay, this includes prohibitions on listing iconic apex predators and prohibits endangered species and prohibits Endangered Species Act final rules. Okay. The next area, energy and water development and related agencies. All right, eliminate EERE, reduce EERE funding, page 379. This cuts energy efficiency and renewable energy by $1.5 billion. Next one, should seek to sunset DOE's loan authority through Congress and eventually eliminate the loan program office, page 383. This cuts $8 billion from DOE loan programs funding, removing at least $90 billion in financing and an additional $260 billion in reductions to current lending capacity. Next one, eliminate Office of Clean Energy Demonstrations, OCED, page 382. This cuts Office of Clean Energy Demonstrations by $23 million. Next one, eliminate energy efficiency standards for appliances, page 379. This prohibits funding for implementing energy efficiency standards for distribution transformers, manufactured housing, air conditioners, conventional cooking projects, commercial ice makers, and consumer water heaters. Oh my gosh. So if you don't need to make things energy efficient, then I guess all the bills that you have to pay for electricity and everything can just skyrocket if things don't need to be made energy efficient. But let's go on. Next one, ensure that LNG export applications are reviewed and approved expeditiously, page 377. This modifies the process for approving the export of natural gas. Next one, eliminate carbon capture utilization and storage, CCUS programs. So eliminate those, page 376. This cuts carbon management programs which support CCUS by $68 million. So I guess they said, we don't need that, just cut that all together. Next one, cut the Federal Energy Management Program, FEMP. Much less money is needed. This was in quotes. And some of these are in quotes. If you look at the document on the screen, some of these are in quotes from these pages. Okay, where was I? So yeah, much less money is needed, page 386, in quotes. FEMP should not stop using FEMP should stop using taxpayer dollars to force the purchase of more expensive and less reliable energy sources in the name of combating climate change, page 369. This cuts the Federal Energy Management Program by $14 million and prohibits implementation of clean energy for new federal buildings and major renovations of federal buildings. Next one, and this is in quotes, eliminate the Clean Energy Corps, page 386. This prohibits funds from being used for the American Climate Corps. Moving on to page 12. This is the Commerce, Justice, Science, and Related Agencies section. Okay, deny the facts that science displayed in the U.S. Global Change Research Program assessment, page 60 and 439. Deny the facts and science displayed in the U.S. Global Change Research Program assessment. So just deny those facts and the science. All right. This blocks the National Science Foundation from funding the U.S. Global Change Research Program. Okay. See how that works? Next one, prevent the government from responding to the climate crisis, page 60. So this prohibits funding to enforce Executive Order 14008, January 27, 2021, entitled Tackling the Climate Crisis at Home and Abroad. Also blocks funding for the NIST, Center of Excellence in Climate Change, NSF's Clean Energy Technology Program, and Climate Change Fisheries Research funded by the Commerce Department. Also prohibits funding for the implementation of Executive Order 14072 relating to the valuation of ecosystem and environmental services and natural assets in federal regulatory decision-making. And lastly, it cuts DOJ's Environment and Natural Resources Division by $21.9 million, which will harm DOJ's ability to bring cases against those who violate the nation's environmental laws. Just had to take a little break. All right. The next one, prevent NOAA from researching and warning the world about the dangers of the climate crisis. Let's just read that again. Prevent the NOAA from researching and warning the world about the dangers of the climate crisis, page 676. This cuts overall NOAA climate research funding by $68 million. Next category, State foreign operations and related programs. Rescind all climate policies from foreign aid programs and shut down offices, programs, and directives designed to advance the Paris Agreement. Cease collaboration with organizations that advocate climate fanaticism. And that's in quotes. Page 257. This prohibits all funding to advance the Paris Agreement, removes all funding directed toward climate goals, prohibits the Green Climate Fund, loss and damage. Okay. Next category, agriculture, rural development, Food and Drug Administration, and related agencies. Restrict the Secretary of Agriculture's ability to use funds from the Commodity Credit Corporation, CCC, and create grounds to challenge CCC usage in court, shifting policymaking to extreme conservative judges. Page 294. Let's read that again because this is on the Trump side. Restrict the Secretary of Agriculture's ability to use funds from the Commodity Credit Corporation and create grounds to challenge CCC's usage in court, shifting policymaking to extreme conservative judges. Okay, I see. This restricts the Secretary of Agriculture's ability to use funds from the Commodity Credit Corporation, which would prevent USDA from responding to natural disasters and other threats to American agriculture fueled by climate change. So, yeah, don't want you to be able to respond to natural disasters. Okay. I have to just pause between some of these and think because it's truly just sort of unbelievable what is happening and how it's laid out and how you can really just see that these things are in there, so many of them are in full motion, ones that we've heard about, and I'm sure ones that just don't even get a chance to make the news with everything else that's going on. It's so much that's happening in such a short period of time. So a lot of these we've heard about. Some of these we haven't heard about, but they are probably, in full motion. So, all right, let's get on to this last little section. Financial services and general government. On the Trump side, reverse support for efforts promoting environmental, social, and governance and principles for reasonable. I'm sorry. I'm just seeing what I want to see. I'm going to start again. Reverse support for efforts promoting environmental, social, and governance and principles for responsible investment, both of which have badly damaged U.S. energy security. Page 709. This prohibits funds from being used to establish a federal advisory committee based on environmental, social, or governance aspects in the United States Department of Treasury. Okay, and then lastly, end federal mandates and subsidies of electric vehicles. Of course. Page 537. So they want to end federal mandates and subsidies of electric vehicles. No mandates, please. This prevents procurement of electric vehicles, electric vehicle batteries, electric vehicle charging stations, or infrastructure. All right. So there we have it. I have been through this entire document. And this was the Trump's Project 2025 Shapes Republicans Funding Bills document that I found on democrats-appropriations.house.gov. And I will go ahead and leave the link in my description so that you can go over there and look at this if you would like to. All right, so that is going to, I'm going to finish out right here for this reading of this document. And I want to thank you all so much for joining me and having patience with me going through this. Take this information and just arm yourself with with knowledge. And also, if you work in these areas, if there's anything that you can do or you have creative ideas, by all means, go forth and take it on. All right. So I want to thank you all so much for joining me, and I will see you on the next one. Bye-bye.